All right. So welcome to our April Author Jam for the Collaborative Change Library. I am just pleased to see you all and have this opportunity to connect. Just want to invite you to briefly introduce yourself, share where your feet touch the ground and what's top of mind for you in your work and in your practice this morning. And we'll just go around and see where that leads us. Anybody want to start?
Well, I'll start because you mentioned where my feet were on the ground. I'm Dave Huron, and I am co-author of Practice as a Way of Being. My other author, Peter Vale, can't be here, but he is here in spirit. And my publisher, and Steve, and my editor, and person who gives me a tremendous amount of help over time is Dale. But here's the point. I went out to play golf this morning, and because of the raw weather and the fact that the course has only been open 3 days, I had pretty much the whole course to myself. And I was playing along, and then it struck me that what I would say to the Author Jam is, folks, today I took a golf lesson. And you'll say, oh, he spent money to have someone help him with his swing. No, golf taught me the lesson today. Big time. And it does it not just once, every swing, every time you bend over to pick up a ball, every time you consider cheating a little bit and hitting a second one. Golf is a tremendous way of learning a lot about myself. And I would suspect that we could say I took a writing lesson today. As I was writing, I took a consulting lesson today when I was out consulting. Or I'm taking a Zoom call lesson today. Creates lessons for us. Then we can impart them to others in ways that we might write or teach or consult. So that's my day. Golf taught me today. Mm-hmm. And
I should go next, Dave.
Humbled by it. Oh, Cliff.
Oh, thanks, Dave. What a wonderful lead in terms of what we can learn and what our world is there to help teach us. I guess I'm a bit consumed by the news these days, just in terms of the term unprecedented has been probably the most overused term out there, and it's true. So I feel grateful. Maybe some don't, for the role of our justice system in the process of uncovering truth. I think that's the big challenge right now, is to discern what we can learn from one another around what the truth is. And I know that's a complicated issue, but that's the challenge. So I'm just looking at some of the opportunities from our socio-political challenges and opportunities. The thing that's most high on my mind, I'll keep this brief because it's a big topic, is the role of the discussion about our history and race, primarily in our history, and the role of quote unquote critical race theory and how that's being politicized, and what's the opportunity to bring my passion and our tools to bear on that question, and what would the polarity be. And I think it's around being proud and at the same time being critical. We can be proud of our history, and we can also be critical at the same time. And the inability to confront our shortcomings is is actually a symptom of a downside of the fear that if we are critical, then we can't be proud. And it's a false choice. And I feel like that we can be both. And when we're applying for a job, we put a resume out there. We're trying to put our best foot forward. And we we can also be critical of our own shortcomings at the same time, that we put our best foot forward in terms of our ideals and our strengths and our skills. And I just feel like that's an opportunity for us to just think about it in terms of just the simple, like raising. I don't have kids of my own, but just raising our children, we have to be tough on them sometimes. And they're not perfect, and we're not perfect. So, how do we see a more complete picture of ourselves in these tensions and have conversations around our truths as we see it is the big challenge. So that's what I'm really confronting and struggling with right now in terms of what these challenges and opportunities in our political discourse has to teach us right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who do you pick?
Who do I pick? How about Francis?
Okay. So I knew what my response was until everyone started talking when the question was what's uppermost. And so where I'm left is where Cliff left off. So I guess over the last 3 years, I've done a presentation several times titled Going on Being. And the idea is that psychologically, it's actually written by a therapist. How do we go on being the person we choose to be when the world around us is falling apart, or when all these things? And to me, it's become sort of a mantra. So if I look at the world right now, the world really should be very overwhelming for me, because I raised a Black man in America. I'm a Black woman in America. I'm in a certain age group, and I'm a news junkie, which is not good for my soul. And yet, the other thing that's unique about me is that I am focused on bringing the wisdom from our founders and from our history and even our yesterdays into how do we deal with, address, and be useful today. So, and one of the ways that get played out, and the reason that I'm here is several years ago, Dr. Katie, I'll do that to him since he just arrived, asked me to co-teach with him. And I realized that we represent different periods of a real live entity, this whole thing of OD and how do you deliver it, how do you become your best. And it took me a while to realize what a good match we were, because there's some places that we're different. And I feel like I must straddle the past and the future by going on being this person, that I am now. But so all of that somehow, what it brings me to, and you're listening, that's the way my brain works. I have all these things going on at once. It's that this period of time has made me lean into my spirituality, because there's not enough that I can read, that I can learn, that I can do to go on being who I choose to be without some higher power, some contemplative feeding. So I think going on being sort of represents where I'm trying to be, what I'm trying to practice, Dave. And I choose Dr. Katie.
Hey, everybody. I am so happy to be here, because the last 2 times I've had university meetings and stuff that I couldn't be at. So I'm so glad that we have a community that's not dependent on any one person. And that's nice to see and be a part of. You know, it's interesting. I kind of think about our times right now. And we talk about like unprecedented and like how hard times are right now. And I keep reflecting on, there's a part of me that's kind of, I get accused of being overly optimistic at times. And I keep thinking back, and I think back to colonial times and what colonialism did. I think back to what Columbus did when he came to Central America, you know, and the Americas. I think about Mark Twain's writings. If you go back and read his writings, it'll sound very much like he's here today with us. You could just pull his writing out and read them. It would just sound like today. I think of the Spanish Inquisition, and I think of how Germans took all the children in Paris and France, tied them to chains and threw them in the river to drown all the kids so that they couldn't fight back, you know, when they got older. I think about I think when I went to Africa and I travel through Africa, it's really wild to see. And you have to be there to see it. How tribal culture with colonial culture on the top of it, with dictator culture on top of that, with democratic culture on top of that. And you can see it. You can, like in certain countries like Botswana. I met Chief Gaborone, who his grandfather founded Botswana and the capital of Gaborone. And they have the Dutch Roman law and the tribal law together. And so they have what's called the Huutla. And the Huutla is considered the oldest form of community collaboration or collaboration in the world. The oldest form of, quote, maybe healthy community collaboration. But they have a space, they call it the Huutla. And that's where they come together to gather. And that's where they take care of things. And they have two different laws. And the leader, I remember a magistrate who worked with the Dutch Roman law while also working in the tribal law and how they balance the two. But he said something that was interesting. He goes, "We do not take our criminals out of our community. We take the crime out of the criminal," is what he said to me. And that's how we approach our things that happen in there. So long story short, I come back to where we are today. And I think we're wrestling with stuff in a way that's never been wrestled with before. I think maybe we're on the cusp of better dialogue now than we have ever been before. I think, I just think that I'm hopeful. That's my optimistic side. I think that maybe something good is happening right now. While it's horrible, or maybe it's tough, or maybe it's just like we've lanced one of the things finally, but that's where I'm at. I'm just keep reflecting on all of the stuff that's happening. And I'm like, I do think this, I'll say this, if the current legal system, and I'll just be blatant myself with this, if Trump were to walk away from all of this because of his political ability to say there'll be death and mayhem if you do this, and people are afraid, and he somehow gets away with it, I don't know what to say then. I'm right now hopeful. I believe the right thing is going to happen. So that's kind of where I'm at this moment. I think the other thing is where I'm at the moment is I've been working on the no bits portion of the platform, and I'm hoping that there might be a little bit of time today for me to share with you just a little. I'm trying to figure out how to logically make the case for this, and wanted to try out a logic on you all. So I'm hoping that there might be time for me to try my logical pitch. It's brief, but I want to make sure my logic's making sense. So that's where I'm at. I'm in.
Who do you pick?
Yeah, what's that?
You pick.
Yeah, I think I'll pick Lisa.
Oh, good morning, at least from here still in Michigan. Top of mind for me, several things. I think starting with something Cliff said, at least in the more simple example of not the very big issues of the world, but the hiring, which I'm in the middle of right now as a team lead in my company. But what popped in my head was appreciating that we're allowed to, or I can ask how someone would respond, tell me about a failure. Like that is one of the questions. It's not just like, tell me how great you are, but we ask about the failure part, so we can see how they respond to or have responded in the past. And I think that's really important. And then Dr. Katie getting into some of the kind of cultural things that occur. I just returned from Prague for with my master's cohort, and so just learning a ton about the Czech Republic and communism as it impacted their culture and just how even people interact with each other. We had some just fantastic guides that not only incorporated the history, but then also some of what their family experienced. So you could really understand, and it was more visceral to hear how interplay between even family members, had impacted them personally. So just a ton of learning. And so all of that is kind of churning as I'm in my last month of the program and hopefully graduating on the 28th. So, but that is what's on my mind, is as well as applying a lot of the theory that we're working on our capstone together. So there's a lot of stuff in my brain right now. And I'm just happy to be here and hear everyone's wisdom. So I think, Rosa, you haven't jumped in yet.
Thank you, Lisa. My feet are touching the ground in far western Massachusetts, which is a little town called Great Barrington, and originally Mohican territory. And what is top of mind right now? Well, like Francis, I found it changing in response to everything I'm hearing. Dave, I just want to say I'm practice is like, oh, it's just my touchstone.
Yay.
And yeah, and I was when I went back to school for a doctoral degree, because I knew of some practitioners in Austria who were doing amazing work, and I wanted to help share their stories. And when I just graduated, am in the process of almost graduating. I'm like at the last stages from Fielding, even though I wish I had a chance to also go to the wonderful program at Bowling Green. Anyway, one of the things that I was so struck by was coming across the work of somebody who is well known in the field, whose name I'm blanking out on right now, who wrote that usually in many fields, practice is actually 10 years ahead of theory.
Yes.
And this was an academic who wrote this, right? And so one of the books that I loved encountering was Donald Schoen's The Reflective Practitioner. And my hunch in doing my dissertation research is that these practitioners would be experimenting and evolving and all that, which indeed they were. I want to mention a bit of context here. Jim Ruff, who's also on the call, we were co-authors for the chapter for the book that Stephen and Deo have produced it's not a book, it's a library, it's a whatever for this huge project. And the practitioners in Austria were combining dynamic facilitation and art of hosting and different practices that they had trained in to facilitate these. They're called different things, but it was originally Jim's Wisdom Council model, which they adapted and called Burgerräte, which I like to translate as civic council because as a Latina, I have issues with the word citizen, but then the OECD report, which included them in one of their 20 or 12 shortlist, calls them the Citizens Council. So I guess that's the word we're using right now in English. Anyway, leaving aside all that, all the stuff, all the turf wars around labels and like that, I just want to say that where it connects with this is that these are sortition-based groups, so public lottery, so lots of divergence, who are brought together in a facilitated context to come up with some common ground with regards to a particular societal issue. And so I am right now have just launched my new newsletter, thelisteningarts.com, where I'm looking at inner listening, right? So important. Listening in organizations, listening in the collaborative governance field, and listening to bridge divides, which is in the social field, like the work of Braver Angels and all that kind of stuff. Because I realize I have a very interdisciplinary self. Those are the kind of 4 fields that I've been moving in. So this is not what the chapter is about. This is, the chapter was written, like 3-4 years ago now. And I feel like, thank you. I feel like my thinking has, and my growth and my learning and my practice have all continued to evolve. And I'm just delighted to be here with all of you. And over to you, Jim.
Okay, yeah, I just turned. It's fun to hear everybody, and obviously my thinking's all turned around by what everyone's saying as well. Actually, Rosa, we wrote 2 articles, I think.
Yes,
One
we
on the
did.
Wisdom Council process and one on dynamic facilitation. And it really, and I really appreciate the comments about being a news junkie and the big problems we face today and what are we going to do about it. That I had an epiphany in 1993. The night was May 9th, 1993, when in my mind, I got it that our current system can't make it. It's causing these problems. And that we have to transition to the next system. And how to do that. I really think it's not that hard, actually. It's just a matter of adding the missing ingredient, which is collective intelligence, to what we're doing, and wisdom and compassion and those kinds of things. Missing the co-creative conversation, the whole system, we the people conversation, it's missing. And as a result, we're all like on the Titanic, heading for an iceberg that we all know about. And it's easy to focus on taking care of the kids in the top deck and worrying about where the desk chairs are and getting the music right and things like that. And we're doing and these are good things, and they're all good things to do. But at some point, I think I'm waiting for people to get it, that our system can't work. And so when you talk about truth as determined by the courts, it's absolutely right. That is our system. That's how our system does it. And science, we've got science, we've got the courts. But there's still no conversation. So people rush off and believe whatever they want. We don't have that whole system visit together about what is the truth and what do we want and how do we get there. That's a missing ingredient in what we call democracy. And of course, I think the Republicans used to be kind of the opposition in the system that we have, and I'm almost done, but they used to be the opposition within the system, and I think they had some level of given up on the system of having a constitution and branches of government and representatives and voting and blah blah blah. They really want to go back to the old system where there's a triangle and there's a king up there, and the whole name of the game is how loyal you are to the king. But I guess what I'm saying is that neither of those systems can work. They can't work. And I love, I don't know if you listen to Daniel Schmachtenberger, but he has a great YouTube talking about looking for the third attractor. And the first two are dystopia, which I think means staying in our system. It means going back to the Trump world. And he says dystopia and collapse. And I think collapse is coming in our, if we try and stay in the box world, what I call the box. And we have to move to the circle. So this was 30 years ago, almost to the day that I had this insight, and I've been spending my waking hours trying to move it forward, bring it forward into the world. And, you know, when Steve talks about things coming to a head, I'm like, yeah, people are finally getting it, that our system is really in danger and really broken. And so I'm excited about the possibilities of people taking seriously a transformational strategy, which involves the Wisdom Council process and dynamic facilitation. So I'm
Wow.
done. Thank you. I'm also walking through the woods. It's kind of fun. So I apologize for being, you know, bumping up and down and maybe making you a little head sick, but pretty nice.
Please
Oh, that's
don't. The
awesome.
bird
I'm
sounds
done.
are
Thank you.
wonderful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
I want to mention to Rosa, there is the reflective practitioner right there, Don Schoen, which Peter Vale put in my hand when I was a doctoral student, said, read this and believe it and do it. Do it. And I've kept this, you can see it's all raggedy. I've kept it with me for 50 years. The other point is, you're in Great Barrington. I believe that's where the Dewey Institute, isn't it? John Dewey?
I have never heard of the Dewey Institute. Is it?
I believe it's
I've
there.
heard of John Dewey, but I've never heard of the
Yeah,
Dewey.
I remember driving through there. We live here in northwestern Connecticut, and growing up there, I believe Dewey's school, the Dewey Academy, is still there. And Dewey and several other pragmatists a century or so ago got us thinking about learning in practice, learning in action, learning from action, learning with each other, creating experiential learning like going to Prague, and priming students to observe and absorb and share. I'd like to see in my lifetime a return in schooling to where they were headed when Dewey and others were promoting, get out of the classroom, come back, talk to each other what you learned, but then get out, learn, experience, experiential learning. And I'm delighted, Rosa, that you're doing that. And I love the idea of your book with the listenings, the 4 listenings. So I'll do some now.
Thank you so much. Steve, I know you want to describe your thing to us. Can I say a very short thing that I forgot to mention?
Go ahead,
So
please.
just want to say that I have also been a news junkie, but the particular rabbit hole I've been going down for the last 2 months is all the societal stuff about AI.
Yeah.
And there was an article by Eliezer Yudkowsky, I think his name is. I haven't learned it yet. That was very stark, and at the same time, for me, ended up being incredibly hopeful. So coming to your thing, Stephen, about like maintaining optimism, he did not sign in with the big letter that a bunch of AI people did calling for a temporary pause. And he had a piece in Time Magazine online the following day, because he was saying he didn't sign it because he didn't think it went far enough. And it's very interesting because he's somebody who actually comes from an AI background, as were all the signatories of the letter. But what he said in one particular point that just really, I don't know, there was this flip that happened for me, where he said, it's not that we couldn't theoretically do this, but the big danger is that we have not taught these machines to care for humans or for life or for anything in general. And we're not ready to do that, and we don't know how to do that.
That's right.
And so what was fascinating to me is that it connected with a lot of other things, which I'm not going to go into depth right now, don't have the time for it, but caring, the human ability to care is at the center of so much. And I feel like, of course, we don't need the crisis in AI to tell us that, but it was like an incredible confirmation that what we need to do is not to rush out and try and teach AI to care. What we need to do is try and figure out how to create systems that have caring at their center. Economic systems, political systems, justice systems like restorative justice. There's a wonderful movie about the restorative justice system in Longmont, Colorado that I highly recommend, et cetera, right? So it was like this wake-up call. It's like this whole crisis with AI is telling us we really need to dig into caring and operationalizing caring. So I just wanted to share that with you. Over to you, Steve.
If you all don't mind, I'll jump in and share just for a second some of my reflections. As I think as the only person that grew up under a communist/socialist regime, who, when he came to the US, particularly when I came the first time in 91, 2 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, anything that looked, smelled, appeared to be American, I thought was the greatest thing under God's beautiful sun and on this earth. And it is in part shocking to me to find myself looking at what is going on in this country right now, that I thought that was the kind of stuff I was no longer going to have to face, deal with, contemplate, right?
Mhm.
This idea that this awful communist regime that oppressed my parents and all this stuff, and now here we are. There's a joke that my family used to tell. What's the difference between a communist and a capitalist? For the communist, it's the party book, and for the capitalist, it's the pocketbook. And in many ways, they are the same. And so to be in a place now where we're reflecting around all these things, I find myself going back to what is at the center of this? What is the, if you will, Rosa, you spoke about AI. What is at the core of human collaboration? Is there a really simple, Tennyson Wolf spoke to this a little bit in our last author jam last month. What is the core sort of modalities of human interaction that we gotta go back and remember a little bit? Like, what about circle? Are we intentional about being together? Do we give a for one another? Like, what about us caring for each other before we think about caring, teaching AI how to care, right? What about dialogue and conversation and discussion, and what's the difference between those three? And can we think about that a little bit? Is sort of where I find myself. And I think my hope is that with the conversations that we're having, that can be something that in a way is at the core of as I'm looking around my screen, all of you in your individual focused practice have at its core a value, if not a almost strategic component that is toward that togetherness, and that, however it's framed in a specific modality, but it is about humans doing something together that they couldn't do by themselves.
Yes.
Well
Yeah.
put. Well put.
Yeah. I would like to say that I think the nature of facilitation is incredibly underrated. In other words, we tend to think in terms of, gee, we need to instill caring into the world or at the center of our system and blah, blah, blah. And somehow that begins non-systemically, like we're going to teach people or do therapy or something like that. But the whole nature of facilitation is holistic. In other words, when I facilitate or you facilitate a room, the entire room is now talking and thinking at a higher level with compassion. In other words, if the goal, well, this is what the nature of dynamic facilitation is that we're aiming more for energy rather than, sorry for the wind, energy more than for reason and logic. And in other words, there's a world of reason and logic, and we've got all kinds of systems that are hoping we can somehow aspiring to get to help people be more reasonable and logical and deliberative. But to me, that's not the answer. The real answer is take people where they are as a system and facilitate in the way that energy arises naturally, the carrying energy. And the nature of facilitation has no limits. It doesn't have to be a small room. It can be a huge system of people. It can be a global system of people. So, I mean, I don't feel like when people think about the models of change that are out there, they always skip facilitation and they talk about top down and bottom up. No, there's a whole range of possibility that has not yet been explored. And that's what I'm trying to help bring forward at very large scale, at national level and global level. Why not?
Right on.
Why not? Someone's got to do it, you know. We keep waiting for them to do things and they won't. It's, you know, it does come back to us, Jim.
Yes, well, and then there's a misuse of the word we also. A lot of meanings for the word we. And the one that's really missing that's needed is this whole system we, this all of us together choosing a path that's got collective intelligence, and that is missing in our system. We were born into a system that's all about the individual, and so we think if you stand in front of a room and just say this side of the room do one thing and the other side do the other, and then they all get together and they say we, like somehow they're a we. No, we just arbitrarily did. The missing ingredient has to do with this word we. All of us in one conversation that's ongoing, providing responsible direction and leadership to government, to the economy, to the culture, everything.
Amen. Steve, we got about 12 minutes. Do you want to show us what the no bits are?
Yeah, so I am now moving in the direction of like taking our platform for our stuff and trying to practice pitching it because I want to kind of put it in front of Y Combinator and Shark Tank is my goal next. I want to, and those are two, but then there are others. So I'm trying to think of my logic, my quick logic. What's my logical pitch? The logic underneath it. It'll be fancier later, but I would share it with you. It'd be pretty quick, and you can just tell me if I'm missing something or if I should do it. And I'm gonna give you the. I'll share the screen, but I can give you the link to it too as well. I can put it in the thing. But I'll share my screen just to keep it simple for you, and you can tell me if you like it. So, can make it smaller here. So it's just this here. And so first thing is just basically when you think of like, if you think of Shutterstock, which is images, video, YouTube, which was founded in 2005, you know, Shutterstock's taglines, it's not stock, it's Shutterstock. And then people can make money per download there on that platform. And video, YouTube, Broadcast Yourself. In 2005, it came out and people monetize or make money per view, you know, the views and so forth. Spotify, Music for Everyone in 2006, which is money per stream. So when something gets streamed, what they have in common is they're digital, they're open source, multiple devices, they can be viewed and accessed. They're monetized on that platform. So that platform sends a check. So you get if you do it, you get a check from each YouTube or Spotify or Shutterstock, you know, based on that. The rating, there's a rating system. They have playlists or collections. They have a taggable content. You can share it. People can share it. You can follow or subscribe. And all of these are unicorns. That means that they are worth more than $1 billion. They were transformative and got brought out there and worth $1 million. So my question for you is really what is missing? You know, if those three niches and they really, what's missing? What's the market? And it's interesting, 2006, but has there been a void out there that's not being addressed like these three, you know, for people consuming, you know, things, information, music, pictures, and that kind of thing. So, you know, what I'm offering, what we're offering is No Bits, which is content for all the world to read, or maybe content for all the world to know, or maybe content for all the world to enjoy, right? But that's like the tagline, you know, No Bits. And No Bits is a text-based content creation and curation platform that grows knowledge-based communities and ecosystems, or knowledge communities and ecosystems. I could take out the based there. And more specifically, this is kind of like my paragraph description, if you will. If I were to try to give just an elevator description, it's No Bits empowers content creators and curators to unleash knowledge for all the world to read, organize, and share. Anyone and everyone can upload written content with the option of adding complementary videos, documents, and links. Content can be simply viewed on any device that is browser enabled. Becoming a content creator is as easy as 1, 2, 3. All you need is a word processor and the ability to save your content as an EPUB file. The rest is your history in the making, as the world can read, organize, and share your content with anyone, anywhere, anytime. So the next point is, how is this monetized? Creators and curators, either one, can earn money through advertisements, one-time sales, subscriptions, memberships, rentals, even NFTs. The content is created and curated. The content that is created and curated is copy protected by blockchain technology to enable a variety of possibilities not yet developed or imagined. And the creator or curator, what's the difference? Anyone can be a creator or curator. Curators author or write content that is published for others to read. Authored content can be for the creator's personal use or made available for others privately or publicly. Creators can be followed by others who like the content they're creating. Curators organize content created by authors for others to read. Curation can be for curators' personal use or shared with others privately or publicly. Curators can be followed by others who like what they are curating. Creators and curators can earn money through advertisements, one-time sales, subscriptions, memberships, rentals, NFTs. The content that is created and curated is, again, blockchain technology enabled to enable a variety of possibilities not yet imagined. So what I'd do, what makes this all revolutionary? What makes this, what we're offering here, revolutionary? The power of the No Bits platform is the Build a Book engine, or the knowledge builder engine, that enables a person to organize bits of content called knowledge bits into parts called knowledge parts that can be further organized into wholes called knowledge wholes. Think of this like a playlist within a playlist within a playlist. We currently offer 3 levels for organizing content: knowledge bits, parts, and wholes. Adding a 4th or 5th is easy to do pending the need of the content creators and curators. So we're just keeping it at 3 to keep it manageable. So what I'd like you all to do is think of these personas here on the left. These are different scenarios of people using the content. We have book authors, chef recipe makers, knowledge managers, educators, hobbyists, professionals, tradesperson, a theologian, homeowner, a musician, a poet, a researcher, influencer, publisher, politician, a terrorist, or a journal editor. So we got different personas, different stories of using this and how might they use it. So what I'd like you to do is pick your 3. And then what I'm going to do is pull No Bits right up. And so Rosa, you would pick 3, and I would, in No Bits, build a book right there. Build your book with 3. And then Frances would pick 3, and I'd do her 3. And Cliff, you'd pick 3 and do that. And Jim, you'd pick 3, and Dave, you'd pick 3, and Teo and Lisa, you all pick, and I'd pick 3, and I build books for each of you. Then I would go to our builder to the next level and the wholes level, and I would take all of your selections, your books, and put them into a collection. Boom. And you'd see it, and we'd have one collection, and you'd all be there. Then what I would do is go through and say, okay, let's start with the first book. Let's go with Rosa's, and I'll open up Rosa's book, and she'll have her 3, and I'll just talk about, hey, let's talk about the book author. A book author, this is what a little story. And then let's talk about a chef or a recipe maker, and I'll knowledge manager. And then I go to the next, a hobbyist, and a professional, and a tradesperson, then a homeowner, a musician, a poet, and I would tell you how they would use it. So you pick what you're interested in, and then I would tell you the story, a brief story of how they do it. So you could kind of see how they would use it and the power of it, how it'd be unfolded for them. That's my logic. The rest is all like, what are the features? What's next? How do you do this? All that kind of stuff, you know, so that's my general logic of trying to get people to understand. What do you all think?
I see the flow very nicely, and I'm part of it, you know, with our book being a digital first book. I had the image, Steve, of the Wild West where, let's say, horses ran free. And then when they were corralled and trained or domesticated, then they became useful to for many other reasons. And what's happened in my experience is that what we're calling content has run free. I mean, it's the genius of YouTube, for example, is there are 1 billion plus people who've put content on there without cost to them. So how do we corral, maybe that's curation, some of the content and qualify it, make sure it's got value, and put a charge on it. That's if this were 40 years ago, this would not even be a concern, because from my experience, all printed content was in corrals. Very little escaped. In fact, society didn't really want it to. They called it junk, voodoo, you name it. Now it's a different story. That's my thought.
Yeah. Well, McGraw-Hill inspired this. They inspired me, the CEO from McGraw-Hill, who told me that he could have people in India write content. They don't need authors.
Yeah. So it's true.
He
I mean, it's true in a way.
You're crazy. Yeah, there's a longer story to that one. What else do you all think? What are some other reactions? Just general, off the top of the head reactions, thoughts?
Well, Stephen, I thought I read something in your first initial blurb that was talking about community building, and then that didn't show up again. So I was really curious about that aspect of it. Let me just say what I think what you're doing here is awesome. I think that you're bringing together the authors of the various chapters is just brilliant. And I feel so grateful to you for allowing this space for human connection. And somehow, yeah, that grows knowledge communities and ecosystems, right? So I'm still curious about a little bit more of that sense of how the community might fit into it. And then in terms of monetizing content, I guess the two things that I wrote down that you might want to, people might say, well, how is this different than Medium? How is it different than Substack? And then as you went on with the presentation, I definitely got it that you're talking about being able to recombine these different bits and pieces in different and unique ways. And that's certainly the attraction of ChatGPT, right? Is that you can pose a question to it, and rather than Google giving you all these links, it will give you back a narrative. So you don't even need to pay somebody in India. You could just have ChatGPT generate your content, even though it's not always accurate, right? And like that. But I'm kind of with Dave a bit, the horse having left the corral, and still, like, I don't know how people do it, but I love YouTube, right? I love being able to go and find amazing pieces of music on YouTube. And so for a lot of people, it's free, and yet I just have to put up with a few ads every now and then. So there is something that's very powerful about allowing people free content and at the same time having some kind of revenue for the creators. So I wish you all luck with that.
Thanks.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, thanks. I know we have to go. Anybody have anything else to share?
Well, the thing that's still stuck in my mind is, we talked about how the values somehow got left out of artificial intelligence, got left out of democracy maybe. And so when I looked at that first list, I wondered, is there some value that we are standing on as we come to this that would make some of this not, some of these platforms or some of these mechanisms not appropriate for us to consider? And I don't have all the language right. It's just saying to me, let's look now at, because once once it's out there, you're not even trying to control it, you want it to go, but is anything we're missing now in terms of what's important to us based on our purpose, some value or some, not controls, but boundaries is the word I'm looking for, that we need to think about now.
Mm.
Cool. Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate that.
I think
So
it's a
I-
great way
go
to
ahead.
go. Keep at it,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
There's a link in the
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a link in the chat if you all feel so inclined to hear more from Rosa on the 26th. She's going to talk to our doctoral students. It's an open to the public symposium. Feel free to click on that and consider if that's something you might want to check out. And you'll have a follow-up email from Lisa and I in your inbox with a little bit of the rich capture from today. We'll try to track down some of the links and things to stuff that you all mentioned so we can share it, and look forward to hopefully talk to you all again soon, maybe on the first Thursday of the next month.
See you
Thank
all.
So much.
Thank
This
you.
has
It's
been
great to
lovely.
meet you folks who haven't met before. Thank you.
Bye,
Namaste.
everybody.
Francis, I do hope I can connect with you at some point. That would bring me such joy.
We will start after your symposium, which I will attend.
Oh, okay.
Then we'll have both sides of us.
Okay.
meeting. I'll know you as well as you know me, but I look forward to it, and thank you.
Very good to meet you, Jay. Very good to meet you, Lisa. Good to see you, Teo. Good to see you, Stephen.
Thanks.
And Teo, will you tell us again how to save the chat, or will you send it to us?
So I'm not going to just send you the safe chat. I'm going to send you the links and some of the commentary.
Great.
And you'll get a follow-up that's probably a page and a half of, and Steve shared this idea and with a link, and Dave said this thing, and I thought, to me, it was, I really had to smirk and chuckle that, three of you brought up the what's his name, Daniel Schoen
Yes,
book.
and you and I had just
Right,
mentioned him.
we had just talked about it, and here
Mhm.
Dave's holding it up, and Rosa is bringing it up. I don't know, Steve, how that feels to you, but to me, the focus on practice that I've gotten to meet Peter Vale through Dave sharing manuscript stuff from Peter writing the book on practice as a way of being. I've gotten introduced into Steve's work in many ways around, well, the students will want to know, so what and now what, right? So it's one thing to share the theory, but Lisa's talking about, okay, what are we going to do with that for our capstone? It's nice to have the theoretical understanding. So the resonance around being a practitioner is just is something that is energizing me today from this conversation that I'm grateful for.
And I think that what Schoen was saying back then is, he was writing to fellow academics and saying, we're not the only reflective people in the world, even though the basis of our research is philosophy and so forth, is to be reflective and then share those reflections. They're doing it too. Just help them see it that way. My lesson from golf today was that I paid attention in a different way. I was reflective about where I was on the 11th hole. and it was amazing difference. Otherwise, it just would have been another round of golf. So maybe that's what's so wonderful. And frankly, the free exchange of content to get it out there first, what we're asking people to do who are reflectors, share your reflections will make it easy for you. And then curating them makes it such that people will actually pay attention. So there's a lot going on here today. Great.
I have a young black man who just came down the stairs, looked at me, who's got his tie on and his shirt. He's going to his first college visit. Guess where he's going?
All right. Okay.
Go in the BGSU, and we need to stop real quick and print his parking pass because the printer at home is out of color. So I'm going to say farewell to y'all and talk to you soon.
Okay.
Tell them it's a
Okay.
great
Bye,
school.
Teo.
Francis, I'll be into. He's heard me talk about the place every once in a while.
Okay,
Thank you, guys. Great to see you,
Yes,
Francis.
bye, Teo. Bye, all.
Bye,
good
Tate.
to
Bye,
see
Steve.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
See you, Lisa.